Hi everyone, and welcome to Wednesday's lesson, our next English lesson. So as you can see, what we're going to be focusing on today is using speech, okay? So we're building on another writing skill. So like yesterday when we were looking at tenses, speech is another writing skill that we'll be sort of looking to develop. And what we're going to be looking at today is whether we can identify when something is spoken in a text and whether we can punctuate it properly. And that's the tricky part sometimes, punctuating our speech properly, okay? Because there's a lot to speech, and we need to make sure that we know exactly what to do when we is putting speech into something. So to get started, we've got a little bit of an extract here, and it has some speech in it. So I'm going to read it out for you, and then I want you to think about if you can see any speech in this text. Wham, bam, jelly and jam. Within a fraction of a second of pressing the button, the world had turned into chocolate. At first, it seemed like a gift from God for Mr. Bonkers. He shouted, "Hallelujah!" Staring down in sheer amazement, he saw that a rather dull apple he had been eating had now turned into a rich, dark, scrummy Belgian chocolate. Without another thought of his already bulging waistline, he greedily gobbled it down. "Wow! This is like heaven!" exclaimed Mrs. Bloom in delirious delight as she tasted an orange chocolate flower. Mrs. Floss was not as keen. "Your teeth will fall out," she yelled at her two young children, Pippin and Zack, as they licked the trees, the pavement, and everything in sight. Right. So I want you to pause the video here, and I want you to think, could you identify any bits of speech in that? Where did you think you could find some speech? Was there any that you noticed? Right, pause the video now. Okay, hopefully you noticed that there was 3 pieces of speech in there. And there's something that might have popped out at you that told you that this is speech. So you might have noticed that here is some speech. There is another piece here down this bottom part. And then there's another piece there. And they all have in common is that they are all encased in inverted commas. Now, encased is what we mean is it's sort of like covered and sort of contained inside. So on either side of what has been said are inverted commas. Now, inverted commas are these little things here. They're 2 little marks at the top, okay? And they go around whatever is said. If it is not said, then they are outside. So everything outside of these inverted commas is not spoken. It's the description. It's telling you a little bit more about the story. But if a character is saying something, then it is gone inside these inverted commas. And you can see where I've highlighted all the inverted commas that go around the 3 pieces of speech in this extract. So another thing you might have noticed is that only punctuation that is part of the direct speech should go inside the inverted commas. So I want you to think about when you've got speech, treat it like its own sentence. And what I mean by that is they all should start with a capital letter. It's almost like it's its own sentence on its own. So every time I have speech, the first thing after my inverted comma is a capital letter. I need a capital letter after it. But I also need something at the end of my speech, okay? So if the end of the speech falls at the end of the sentence, only 1 punctuation mark is needed. So if you look here, I've written my sentence, it's just hallelujah. 1 word, it's got a capital letter at the beginning and an exclamation mark at the end. There is no full stop outside the speech marks because it's not needed. The punctuation is inside the speech marks. Remember, treat it like its own sentence on its own. Almost write that sentence and then put the speech marks around it. So then you know you're going to get that capital letter and whatever punctuation at the end. So you can see here on every bit of speech, the punctuation at the end is an exclamation mark, because they're all sort of exclaiming or shouting something, okay? Now, the break between speech and non-spoken words is normally signalled by a comma. We don't have any in this extract, but I'm going to show you some examples of when we might put a comma at the end of our speech, okay? And finally, put each different speaker in a new line. So you can see here that we've got Mr. Bonkers speaking. He shouts hallelujah, okay? And he's still sort of, his section is still going on here. We're still talking about what Mr. Bonkers is doing, because he has his apple and he reaches down and then he gobbles it up and the full stop's there. Now I'm not carrying on with wow, this is like heaven here, because now Mrs. Bloom is speaking. So I've started a new line here with what Mrs. Bloom is saying. She's gone, wow, this is like heaven. And then we continue with her sentences and her describing of her eating that chocolate orange flower. And we stop here. Now, instead of I could have written Mrs. Floss was not as keen after the flower, but it's going to be a new speaker. She's speaking again. So she's also gone onto a new line. So I've gone underneath to write what Mrs. Floss is saying, okay? Now, there's a lot of information in there to take in. So what we've got is I've got a few examples on this video of you to practice writing some speech, okay? And we'll go through those in a minute. Now, before we go through them, what I'd like you to look at is spotting speech in our model text. So I've taken the opening there. Can you spot any speech in our model text? Pause the video if you need to have a little quick look at the model text to see. Remember what we're looking out for, what tells us definitely there's speech there. Well, you might have noticed again, we've got our inverted commas, okay? You've got now, Mitch, don't go playing by the pylon, okay? You've got it's dangerous. You'll get yourself electrocuted. Now, again, inside that speech, we've started each bit with a capital letter. Those capital letters are needed, okay? And then at the end, we've got a punctuation. Now, you see there, I told you I was going to show you some examples of one with a comma. Now, we've put a comma there because Mum hasn't stopped talking. She's gone, now, Mitch, don't go playing by the pylon. It's dangerous. You'll get yourself electrocuted. Mum's almost saying that all together, but the author wants to break it up and said, my mum had warned me often enough, and put it in between the speech. When we're putting something in between speech, we're going to put a comma at the end of our first bit of speech, finish it off with the inverted comma, say who'd said it, and then carry on talking. And then you'll notice that at the end of the next piece of speech, there is the full stop just here, okay? Because we still need to make sure we finish off that sentence. So that's our important bit, remembering our capital letters and our punctuation at the end. Now, there's no new line for a speaker because no one else is talking. So we don't need to worry about a new line here. Now this bit is from the ending of our story, okay? And we can again see the speech there because we've got speech marks, or inverted commas, sorry, around our speech. You can see them. There are several pieces of speech because we've got inverted commas around lots of different parts. We can see that all of the speeches start with a capital letter. Every time we have someone say something, it starts with a capital letter. Again there, just on this one, we've got that comma in there. We've not got a full stop because Mum hasn't stopped talking. She's going, I'm not made of money. Still, maybe a good wash will sort them out. That's the end of the sentence. So I'm going to put my full stop here and not there. But because I've said, it's saying I'm not made of money, said Mum, I'm putting it in between the speech. I've got to put a comma there, okay? The next one. So, a tree nearly hit you. And we've put a question mark on the end because Mum's asking a question. We can put question marks in our speech. They're just like normal sentences, but it's just that we're putting them inside inverted commas to show that someone is saying them, okay? So we're just putting them inside. You can ask questions, you can exclaim, you can just write a normal sentence, okay? The next one, we've got that exclaim, so we've put an exclamation mark at the end. But again, we've started with a capital letter, we've ended with our punctuation, and we've got our inverted commas around it, okay? Around everything that's said. We're not putting inverted commas around she said, because she doesn't say that. She doesn't say, you could have been killed, she said. She says, you could have been killed. But you need to remember, you've got to tell me who is saying things as well. So again, like the first one, there is no other speaker, so we do not need to worry about changing lines if there's only one person talking. If there's more than one person talking, then that's when we need to think about it. So here are some examples. You can write them down if you need to. If you do not need to, and you can think about how they are going to be written, then fantastic, okay? So you've got a boy here, and in his speech bubble, he said, I can eat more than you, okay? What he's saying is, I can eat more than you. So inside our speech, we need to put that sentence with a capital letter at the front and the punctuation at the end, whether that's a full stop or an exclamation mark. We put an exclamation mark together. Next, we need to say who said it. So I've just put said the boy. He doesn't have to say said either. He could say shouted the boy. You might say declared the boy. You might say exclaimed the boy. Okay, it doesn't have to be said, but it can be different things. But after the speech, you need to say who it said it. You don't actually have to put it at the end, though. You could put it before. But you're not going to say said the boy. You're going to say the boy said if you put it at the front. So you might just need to think about the way that things would go around in your sentences. Right, let's have a look at another example. Next one we've got, the boy says, my lollipop stick is melting. Okay, I think I've changed that. I've gone with, I'm just going to take the stick out because I don't think that makes sense. And I've just gone, my lollipop is melting. Now again, we've got our inverted commas around the speech. We're starting with that capital letter again. Very, very important. And we're ending with, this time, a full stop. Okay, and I'm still keeping the boy at the end, but I'm going to say explained the boy. Now, you might say said the boy again, and that's fine, but I've put explained the boy. You might say told the boy. You might say oh, I can't think of something off the top of my head. So maybe we need some examples somewhere. Let's see the next example. We've got stop eating immediately. Now, I've given you a bit of a clue of something that I've done. I've got my speech marks already in place on my phone, and you can see that there is one set here and another set there, which might tell you that I'm going to split up what the boy is saying. So I'm going to start off with stop eating. There I've got my capital letter. But remember, because I'm splitting it, I've got a comma there. I'm splitting up what he said. Stop eating, shouted the boy. Okay? Stop eating, shouted the boy. I've got not a full stop here because I've not finished my sentence. I put a comma in front of my speech, okay? Because it's not quite the end of it. Immediately. Stop eating, shouted the boy. Immediately. Okay? So I'm splitting up what he's saying, and at the end, I've finished it off with an exclamation mark, but I've still got that capital letter there. Right. This is where you get to have a go with it now. So on your sheets, you have Wednesday's work, and what I've done is I've put lots of speech inside speech bubbles from different characters and what they will have said. What I would love for you to do is write these as speech in your book. So make sure you punctuate it correctly. I want you to make sure that your inverted commas are around what's being said. So I would be making sure that I put speech marks and then saying, hold on tight, I'll save you, speech marks, shouted Wonder Woman, yeah? Or you might put Wonder Woman first. You might say, Wonder Woman shouted, hold on tight, I'll save you. And you think about it. You might even split that. You might go, hold on tight, said Wonder Woman, I'll save you. And you might want to split it into two and put said in the middle. You've got the knight here. Again, we want our inverted commas in front of hold on. Again, we want our capital letter, don't we? Hold on tight, explained the knight. I'll save you. Or actually, I feel like what would need to go, it needs to go there, doesn't it? Oh, I don't quite like how you'd split it there and then say, I'll save you, I'll protect you from the castle. I'd go, hold on tight, I'll save you, shouted the knight. I will protect the castle from the dragon. With our ending speech marks, making sure that they're going round the bit that is being said. Now, I've also included some examples instead of saying said. Just like earlier, I was coming up with blank because I was thinking, oh, I can't remember any. And we're not expecting you to have all of them in your head already. So on this video, you can see that there is so many different ways of saying said. You don't have to say said all of the time. It doesn't mean that said is wrong. And we can use said, and that's absolutely fine. But sometimes we can use different words to show how someone is feeling or how they might say it, okay? So if you're asking a question, you might ask something rather than saying it. If you're trying to speak quietly, you might whisper it really quietly. Or if you're shouting, you might yell it really loud, okay? So there are different ways that you can show how someone is speaking. So for today, I would love for you in your books to be writing out the speech for those different characters, using different words for said, and making sure that you've got your inverted commas around your speech, a capital letter for the first part of your speech, and punctuation at the end of it. Making sure that it is all inside our speech marks, okay? Right. Have a good go at that. I can't wait to see any of your work that you might be sending me later. Thanks for watching.